Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Game Over Toronto. We're here on a beautiful Thursday afternoon. It's an early game, right? uh, the sun's still out, it's still shining, and the Leafs had a interesting game, to say the least. They almost blew it there. It started off really boring, almost blew it, and somehow managed to keep it together. Uh, even when the Flyers had that open net opportunity, like, my God, my heart's racing right now. But you guys are in for a treat today. We have Will Scouch coming on. He'll be joining us in just a bit to help break down the game, as well as give us some insight into the juniors that's coming up. That's really exciting. But before we get into that, we got to give a shout out to our sponsors, Sports Interaction. Think you know what way it'll go? Make your bet with Sports Interaction. Whether it's hockey, football, or baseball, Sports Interaction has you covered. Bet pregame, live and play, or on one of our many prop bets. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Want to bet? Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 and older, and please play responsibly. All right, without further ado, let's introduce Will. Will, thank you for joining us today. Will's here. He has his Scouching and McLean's hockey as well. We're so excited to have you on. I'm really excited. I mean, I've listened to you a lot, especially when it comes to the draft-in time. So it's fun to have you on and pick at your brain about the juniors, because I know that's coming up and everyone's excited for that, right?
Yeah, it's great to be on. Long-time watcher, first-time visitor. It's really great to meet you guys and get on the show. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It was a great game, and I think the next couple of weeks are going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what a way to go off into the holiday break, right? It started off so boring, right? For a next gen game,
the first 10 minutes, I think there were 4 shots on goal total.
Ridiculous stuff, and especially for a next gen game. I mean, we've been really spoiled, yeah, by a lot of really good next gen games, and it started off slow, but when it picked up quickly, and probably not for the better in that third period.
I saw a tweet from Cam saying Cam Charon, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. I apologize if I got that wrong, but he said it was the least convincing dominant win I've seen in a while. And that fully describes it. The Leafs dominated that game, completely dominated that game, especially the second onwards. And oh my goodness, we almost leafed it hard.
It almost happened. Yeah, we almost witnessed a pretty good one. But it's okay. They got the win. That's how it works. It doesn't matter. They don't ask how. They just want you to win. But it's a great example of a game where the floodgates just kind of broke. It just was, it was kind of tipping in the Leafs' favor for a while there, and then the dam broke, but then the Leafs showed up at the end, and we almost lost it. But we got across the finish line.
Well, I got a
fitting introduction.
Go ahead. When that Favre open net goal almost happened, how close were you on the edge of your seat? How nervous were you on that?
I honestly, I had something else going on my other monitor, and I saw in the corner of my eye that the net was open and that was about to happen, and I didn't even need to look. I just went, oh God, here we go. and then I saw the guy's stick go in the air, and I'm going, okay, so it might have gone in there. And then I look, and he was doing the whole, oh my God, I can't believe it didn't go in thing, which looks very similar to a goal celebration sometimes. And dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, we were honestly lucky. That would have been the perfect introduction to the franchise for all the kids watching in the stands today.
Sometimes there's pain. Sometimes there's a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Sometimes that pain happens when you least expect it, right around Christmas,
Yeah, going into Christmas, last game before the break, and we do that. Hey, it was really close.
Almost. At least
I was waiting for all the "it was 4-1" tweets that were gonna come my way.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it was really funny listening to the crowd chanting "Go Leafs Go," because I completely forgot that I don't know why, it just passed my mind that there was a lot of kids at the audience, but when they're chanting "Go Leafs Go" and you just hear a bunch of kids like chant, it's just
it
it's
hits
just the most
different.
Zoomer.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was so
It's
many. There was
hilarious.
some like the dance troops at the intermission, and like there was just so much dancing. I'm going.
They
That was
really
not a
cater
thing.
to the kids.
That was
Yeah.
not a thing when I was a kid. Nobody danced in the '90s. Nobody was dancing.
It's the TikTok generation.
Yeah, no kidding.
Harnish
Everybody was
generation.
everybody
My
was too busy watching
generation.
Space Jam.
Yes.
What is the age range for Zoomers, man? I feel like it's 2000 and older, right?
No,
or 2000 younger.
I
Sorry.
don't know.
No, it's different now.
No way.
You like to
different now.
think
Things
you're a
have changed.
millennial. so
I'm
you're
a
Zoomer.
millennial. I'm not a Zoomer. All right. We'll stick it.
I'm not
there.
one of those. I'm not
I
one
beg
of
to
those.
differ. But yeah, it is like I do like the next gen games. Like I like the little
Oh, yeah.
animations they do. It's just nice. And it adds a bit of personality to the game. So
It's-
I
It's
like
more it's more fun than the normal broadcasts, right?
exactly.
Like the little animated avatars and like the little, the colorfulness, and it's a lot of fun. I always love them. I hope they keep doing them.
Yeah.
Obviously the jersey you're wearing also factors into it a lot. Like it's a totally new look at, how the Leafs have been and what they're kind of trying to be. It's really, really cool. And you're like, it's true. A lot of the games that they do, a lot of the next gen games are actually a lot of fun. So
Yeah, the Carolina one. Oh,
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
like one of
Yeah.
my favorite games to
That
watch
was a hoot.
ever. It was
Yeah.
a barn burner. Even though it's like not really good hockey at all. Like
right.
it's just
I mean,
both
at that
teams
point,
just
just
going all offense.
Get
but
the goalies out of the way. Just start throwing
was
pucks
an
on
amazing
net. Anything's gonna go in at that point, right?
Yeah, and I don't think anyone really minds about like a 9-7 game except like coaches. I don't know. I don't think anyone cares except for the small number of dudes on the bench. Everyone else loves it, but like because that's the case, we don't get a lot of 9-7 games. But
Yeah.
I'm team 9-7. I want to like have
defense.
I want to have like a borderline heart attack every single game just because of how many goals are being scored. Just give me that.
Hey,
Yeah, like how many?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, like how many shots did the Flyers end up having total?
20 something, I think. I don't know. It was I
Okay.
think it was less than 30.
Because I think at the 20-minute mark they had something like
8.
it was
Yeah,
less
it was-
than 10, right?
Yeah,
It
I
was
think the
bad.
shots were 27-7 after the
And the
second period.
Lightning last game, we held them to below 10
Yeah.
shots within 2 periods as well. The Leafs, like it's so stupid. Like, so I still see a lot of discourse on Twitter about how like the Leafs are like all offense
Yeah,
and stuff like that. And it's like that has not been the case since Keefe has joined like as a coach.
well, it's interesting. Like what I think the Leafs do really, really well, and what I think they sort of buck the trend with, and this I think is extra true now that there's a bunch of injured defensemen, and they've been sort of
Yeah.
had to mix things up a lot and like bring up guys from the minors a lot, and guys are coming in and out of the lineup all the time, but they still are performing really, really well defensively as well. But I think a lot of that, like when I watch the Leafs, I see just how often the forwards are in the neutral zone, clogging things up and preventing defensive entries in the first place. And I think that that's a really good example of, I watch a lot of young players, and it's a good lesson, I think, to learn that in the NHL, you do not stop moving your feet a lot of the time. Like you are constantly, if you want to be a great NHL player, you got to be everywhere. You got to be able to get around, challenge guys all over the place. Like defense is best played not in the defensive end, right? So when I see the Leafs play, like I look at Mitch Marner and look at how far he's come in his career with being a better back checker. The same thing with Austin Matthews. William Nylander is one of the better, I'd say, one of the better guys around that can grab the puck in the neutral zone, turn it around, and avoid having to play defense in the first place. So yeah, like you can look at the defense and go, well, the names on the defense group for the Leafs aren't superstars. Like they're whatever, like, and they're missing guys like Ramuzin and Riley and whatever. But you look at the rest of the team and it's like, well, the forwards, if they're doing things right and if they're motivated the right way, can chip in defensively to the point where it's like, yeah, Victor Mete and all these other depth guys don't look that out of place. Like when they're relied upon, it's they might be a little hit or miss when it's like close quarters defense, but the forwards do a lot of the heavy lifting, I think, in the neutral zone to sort of stop things from getting to that point anyway. And I think that's how you see teams like Philadelphia and Tampa really getting shut out in that area of the game.
Yeah, and you also see guys like Kevin Hayes getting, healthy scratched from Tortorella a couple games ago. He's their leading point scorer or point getter on the team, and he got scratched, and it's partly because coaches like guys who commit to defense. And the other thing that like our forwards are really committing to defense this year, and especially these last couple of games, that you see it constantly. But a part of that I think facilitates that is the way we generate offense. We are not a very rush heavy team, and so none of our forwards tend to cheat for offense because we're looking for that stretch pass. We tend to circle back, and so I think that part of that leads to better defense as well, because we have guys, our forwards in deep, and we're not cheating for offense with a guy on the weak side wing, going up to their blue line. So it's just defensively, I think we sort of deserve the reputation we're getting, or we should be getting now, which is that we're a good defensive team, and really our whole is the offense. Like I think we're like fourth in goals against or something in the league right now, and like we're middle of the pack in terms of goals for.
Now,
so
do you think that this is because like we're missing so many people on our defensive core, right? So the forwards have to try to help them, right, and try to cover the gaps, right? So once we get a lot of our players back, like Riley, and see some more stability in our defensive core, do you think that Sheldon Keefe will try to transition to play more of an offensive hockey, I guess, like strategy, where they are, like you said, chasing after the puck, or trying to make plays like that instead of just trying to circle back around?
I mean, in my view, I wouldn't tinker with anything at this point, right? Like the team's been winning and winning and winning. And I don't know, I lived through a lot of Leafs seasons, and I've seen a lot of different Leafs teams that win and probably don't deserve to win most of the games they've won. And they're not playing like that, right? Like maybe early in the year, it was a little rough, but that's, not only is that somewhat typical for Toronto, but also, it was the first 10 games of the year. You're sorting things out. And in reality, like, yeah, some moments were awful, but things were kind of looking okay. And they weren't as bad as I think the results were looking. And now you're sort of seeing not only a bit of regression, but like now they're getting confidence. Like what you're seeing a lot is the confidence and the energy that was kind of missing from that first 10 games. And that leads to defense as well. Like energy is necessary both offensively and defensively. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the name that is probably the biggest one that's missing right now is, I would say, Morgan Riley. But when you bring Morgan Riley into the lineup again, that I don't think that means that you can then go, okay, well now we can stretch things out a little more offensively. Like Riley, I love Morgan Riley when he's got the puck on his stick, but defensively he is not the same quality player as he is offensively, and that's no disrespect to Morgan Riley. He's a fantastic offensive defenseman, but to me it just means, okay, we have this guy back who can add more offense to the equation, but that doesn't mean the forwards can then sort of sit back, take the foot off the gas pedal a little more, because they just don't really have that. And so I think that the way that they're playing right now is doing just fine. They're defensively, they're treading water, mostly because of the involvement, I think, from the forwards helping out defensively. But we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens, because honestly, like if you had told me that Morgan Riley was never a Toronto Maple Leaf based on how they've played without him, I wouldn't be surprised. Like it's just very interesting to see how they've played without a player that important to them. And I mean, not that he's going to be a bad player to add back on the roster, but I don't think it would drastically cause any sort of like shift in the tactics.
Yeah, I tend to agree, honestly. Like Riley is a fantastic offensive player, but like you said, his defensive game, it's not top end NHL. So it'll be like, I don't think they're going to cheat for offense once he comes back. He is a player who already sort of plays that offensive game, and he can generate more than enough chances himself. And so I still want to see them commit to this sort of defense by committee style of play that they're doing, and I'm sure they will. But we're talking after like a 4-3 game, and what I really want to talk about is like that probably shouldn't have been a 4-3 game. I thought Samsonov was not the best today, and I think that's a couple games in a row where we've seen a bit of a hole in his game, but that's obviously coming after 2 shutouts in a row too. So it's like, it's hard to call this a trend, but just a weak game overall from him, especially that third goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think him and Matt Murray both have been, I would say, I mean, I don't have the data in front of me, but like I'd say they've been kind of outperforming expectations a little bit. Like there's been a few games, especially Matt Murray, where he has really sort of stood on his head and saved a couple, which is great. You need that out of your goaltending, but like there's got to be give and take with that kind of stuff. You can't always expect that out of your goaltenders. You know, but all they need, like, again, you look at this game, they still won, and they need adequate goaltending. I think a bigger, not an issue, but a thing to note from this game was more that, yeah, they almost lost in the end, but you know, thinking about it psychologically, like, you've got a building full of kids, you know, they're going crazy. You've been dominant all game. You're playing a team that is really on the outs, but they're scrappy. Like, you can't knock the Philadelphia Flyers for how hard they play and how physical they are and how much they want to sort of come at you, which is kind of what they want. And when that happens and you have that mismatch of like, oh, we're the dominant big dog in the house, and we've got a crowd full of kids that just love what they've seen for the last 2.5 periods, and then some bounce goes Philadelphia's way, right? Yeah, maybe Ilya Samsonov has a soft goal here and there, but once that happens, then Philadelphia goes, okay, there's a spark, right? Like, there's something, and they might have caught Toronto sleeping, or they might think that Toronto might be dozing off a little bit, and then you can sort of get something going. And I don't know, it almost was a disaster for sure, right? Like, I think that's something where you can come after the game and with notes and be like, look, we got to play a full 60 minutes, like age-old lesson with the Toronto Maple Leafs. But, you know, I think it's a little bit more forgivable, especially considering just how dominant they were, and then considering like the environment that they were playing in. But you don't want them to lose that game. But luckily they did not.
Yeah, it was close though.
Very close.
Yes, I was curious. Like, we have a comment about Samsonov, and I was curious what you think of this. He says, I feel better about this goaltending tandem versus last year. What are your thoughts? Murray, Samsonov versus Campbell, Mrazek.
Well, I mean, they're both an upgrade on Mrazek. That is absolutely that's
that's a given.
I mean, unfortunately, right? Like, Mrazek just didn't work out. And I think with Jack Campbell, I mean, Jack Campbell's part of this like weird subgroup of goaltenders like Jonathan Quick, where they're either outstanding or just not good. And like Jack Campbell was very, you know, you don't see a lot of goaltenders play this way and find a lot of success long term, where they're very aggressive, they're all over the crease, they're just make a save goaltenders, right? Like, if they're down and out, they'll swim, right? And that can work. And there have been periods where Jack Campbell was searing hot and it worked, but you know, then it doesn't. Whereas now, I do feel like you at least know that when you face, say, 12 shots in a game, or 12 shots at a time, maybe one goes in. As opposed to like, well, we faced 5 shots and 3 went in this night, but then we faced 42 and 0 went in, right? Like, I think that does have a bit of a psychological effect on the group. So it's two sides of the same coin, right? Like, do you want to gamble and maybe win, or do you want to like invest your money in Canadian bank stock and just sort of plod along doing okay, and hopefully you get to where you want to be? Personally, I go with the latter. So yeah, I mean, with Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov, they just need to be like 900 goaltenders in this day and age, like most nights, and the team should be okay. So I think I would take it, but that also might be the benefit of hindsight, seeing how Jack Campbell was played in a poorer defensive system in Edmonton.
Yeah,
definitely.
Sure.
I guess like from this game though, overall, one player I wanted to kind of point out was Marner. I mean, Marner has had a fun next gen, I guess, like career thus far. So in his 8 games that he's played, he's got 8 goals and 10 assists, and then add on to his goal and assist this game, right? He looked great. He looked phenomenal, right?
But wait, 8 goals and 10 assists in 8 games?
That's pretty amazing.
It's so in the last 8 games he played in the next gen games / next century, he had 8 goals and 10 assists.
And then he got another goal and an assist today.
Yeah,
so
he
in
got
9
another
games,
goal and an assist. Exactly.
9 goals, 11 assists.
Crazy.
That's insane.
I mean, I'm not convinced Mitch Marner's not actually like 12 years old. And
I
so
think
he
they
might
just
have
loaded him up on Skittles and just threw him on the
giving
ice.
him an extra boost being around his like school friends and stuff. Like, I feel like maybe that's what's doing it. He's just perpetually a 12-year-old. But no, I that's pretty amazing. I mean, again, I do think that maybe, you know, having a building full of kids and like doing all this sort of fun extra stuff might give you a bit of extra pep in your step, because again, that's what, when we were watching Mitch Marner early in the year, I think you guys would agree, like, a big issue with him and the other big boys is they just felt like they had like cement in their feet, right? Like, it was the skill was there, but they just looked like they were slow. They looked like they were just
and it was the body language too. Like
Yeah.
you could see it in their
They're just playing
bodies.
really
Yeah.
emotional, right? And it's
Yeah.
kind of a shame to see. I mean, they are becoming vets, right? They're a little bit older now, but still, when they're playing great, they're playing fantastic. It's so nice to see.
I
Yeah.
think it's time that Scotiabank only allows kids during playoffs.
I'm down. I'm in
Yeah.
100% for
Through the
sure.
suits.
Just
Yeah.
bring some TikTok stars out on the ice during
Oh, God, no.
in between the periods and all that.
Let's not get crazy here. Let's not,
Yeah.
Children, yes. TikTok children.
Hey, I saw some TikTok dances going on. Oh, geez.
Yep.
They were
I mean,
having fun.
I can't
They're
be
enjoying
too
it.
much of a curmudgeon. I can't be too much. I mean, I'm not that old, but it does make me feel old, and I'm trying not to be the old man yelling at the cloud watching that stuff. Look, have fun, right? Have fun at games. But I'm fully in for having the like child first thought of of an in-game environment. And I do think that for certain types of people and on the team, it gives them a boost. Now I'm out of focus. That's strange, but anyway.
It's a
Yeah.
super energy.
That's a
Oh, there you
crazy
go.
stat though for Mitch.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he also got boosted from that the Hurricanes game.
Oh yeah,
right?
true. I'm
But
sure that
technically
makes up for a lot of it.
that make up for 4 assists, but still, like it's still it was he's been playing great like throughout.
Yeah.
So he definitely has that energy, and yeah, it's funny because like yesterday I went out for my run and like I saw kids coming out for from like school. So are they still in school? Has Christmas break started yet or not? So I'm really confused.
Yeah.
Just a
Yeah.
bunch of people just like left school early just to go see the game.
That sounds like a good reason to pull your kid out of school like
Yeah, I
2
would.
days before Christmas.
I
I mean,
would.
I got stuck behind a school bus today for a while, so the kids are definitely in school. But yeah, if I'm a dad, I'm pulling my kid out to go to a Leaf game, especially this one. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I left work early to watch this.
Yeah.
So
Oh, my
I
kid is
100%
sick.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we talk about the juniors, got to give a little bit of a shout out to everybody in the chat so far. We love having you guys here, and thank you for taking some time out of your days to join us. If you're enjoying the show thus far, make sure you hit like and subscribe. It really does help the algorithm, and share it with all your friends. Tweet out at us. We love to hear from you guys. But yeah, speaking about the holidays, the juniors are among us. It's time. And I mean, I'm really happy to have you here, Will, to help us,
Yeah.
I guess,
Oh, I'm
digest
thrilled.
all of this. And there's just so much to talk about. But finally, we're able to see, hopefully, fingers crossed, juniors where we're not gonna have any interruption or whatnot, right? Just let it
Yep.
go as scheduled. And we have a great group of, I mean, not us, the Leafs don't have any prospects in there, but there's a lot of good prospects that are going to be playing the juniors, and there's a lot of people to look and to keep an eye out for in the draft, right?
Yeah.
Who are your players, I guess, that you're more interested in, or you think we should
Oh,
take a
man.
look at?
I mean, it's good. I think the most amazing thing about this year's tournament is that there's a lot of draft eligible players this year, at least
Yeah.
relative to what I can remember. You've got a couple of guys that are eligible next year. Aaron Kiviharyu's got a lot of hype coming behind him, and this I think is his first World Junior tournament, so he'll be an interesting one to watch. But there's just a lot of guys eligible for this year's draft who could be drafted very, very highly. A lot of them are on the Slovakian team, and I would not count them out. Like I think this year, obviously Russia's not there. So it seems like the World Juniors is typically now like a Canada, Sweden, US tournament, and then Finland kind of works their way in there somewhere. But I look at Finland, Czech, Slovakia as like, I don't really know who's the best team out of those three. Like Slovakia's got one of the younger teams in this year's tournament, but their youth is kind of the best parts of their team, right? You've got, Adam Shakora, who's really, really young. He was drafted by the Rangers this past year, and he'll be a sort of a physical guy that can go up against, I would say, anybody in the Canadian team, for example. And it's going to be, the Canadian team's loaded. So you're going to need to come at him and really sort of push him around and get him on their heels a little bit. And I think he could do that. But even just the draft eligible guys for Slovakia right now, I'm looking at, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, like 6 of them. And I think that at least 4 or 5 are really, really impressive players. Sam Honzik has been phenomenal with Vancouver in the WHL this year. Alex Ciernik has been great playing in pro hockey over in Sweden, as well as Dalibor Dvorsky. Probably all 3 of those guys go in the first round this year. Maxim Sturbak on defense, a pretty strong, stable guy to have on the back end. I think the Slovakians, if the young guys can sort of really sort of take control and drive a lot of results. Like, you never know how far they can go. I remember the year of Puljujärvi and Kapanen and Laine taking the Finns as far as they can go, and they're all draft eligible at the time. Not saying that these guys are on the same level, but you can ice that line up against pretty much any team in the league in the tournament and do really well. But I mean, I don't know. Canada, Sweden, US they've got great teams. I mean, Canada, you look up and down that lineup and you don't see that many weak points. I look at Canada and say the same thing pretty much every year. If they can stay out of the box and get a save, they're going to be fine. And, they're going to have no problem scoring goals. They're going to just destroy teams like Switzerland and everyone else in their group that isn't Canada, Sweden, US, Finland. Even against the Finns, I feel like they're heavily favored in that one. But this is the World Juniors. Anything can happen. A strong goaltending performance. I look at the Czech team. Tomas Suchanek is their goaltender, and he is a guy who plays for the Tri-City Americans, and anyone who watches the WHL will tell you he faces a lot of hockey pucks and a lot of hockey pucks in areas where you do not want hockey pucks to come from, and he holds things together. The numbers aren't great, but he does what he can, and internationally he's played quite well. So if a guy like that comes along and steals a couple of really good ones from really talented players, you never know. And, I think a lot of this tournament, it comes down to goaltending. And I mean, look, of course, I'm excited to watch Connor Bedard. I think Adam Fantilli is going to make a name for himself. I mean, I think those two guys are pretty comparable as first overall players. If it were any other year, Adam Fantilli would probably be the first overall pick, maybe outside of Rasmus Dahlin his year and Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid. Like, other than those guys, I'm probably taking Fantilli ahead of pretty much everyone else. And you don't hear much about him because he's a Canadian kid playing in Michigan and doing college hockey stuff. And I think he's going to look not at all out of place on that team. So there's a lot to really, really like. There's a lot of, I think, really balanced teams. I think there's a lot of, there's just a lot of meat in the middle where I think there could be some surprises. And even at the bottom end, I mean, I don't know who's going to get relegated this year. And Norway's coming in. They've got a good group of teams, good group of players next year. I think everyone except 5 or 6 guys are coming back. And, I look at Latvia. I think they could do okay. Switzerland, I think, has been a team that's been sort of on the decline. So you never know what's going to happen with them. Austria, they have a couple of guys on their team that have a lot of potential. Guys like Vincent Rohrer, David Reinbacher is going to be a bit of a pain to counter, and he's going to be playing about 68 minutes a night. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens and what comes out on the other side. But I mean, obviously Canada is pretty heavily favored, but it's going to be close, and there's a lot of good teams coming.
How much does like the World Juniors affect your own rankings of players? Like, we saw like guys like Slavkovsky who weren't necessarily in that first overall range prior to that World Juniors, and then he and the Slovakians really played well during that tournament, and we kind of saw a lot more talk of him being a potential first overall, and then he actually got picked first overall. How much does a good tournament affect the way scouts see them, and how amateur scouts and how you see them?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think I look at it on a case by case basis. So the way I kind of see it, just to take as an example, like Connor Bedard. When I watch Connor Bedard with the Regina Pats this year, I see a guy who's basically being given the keys to a Ferrari and just going, do whatever you want, go nuts. Like, you're Connor Bedard. There's not much else to help you out on the team. Like, they're an okay team, but he is the part that makes them like real solid. And like, just the data tracking I've done on him and just the viewings I've had of him, it's like I see the hype, but you can only do so much as an individual. And I've seen him with the Canadian team before, and he doesn't really play the same way. So I will be curious. So in his case, it's sort of like, well, is he going to bring the same sort of energy to the team, or is he going to change how he plays? Like, can he adapt to a different situation that's more high end sort of hockey? But then I look at a guy like Adam Fantilli and I'm going, okay, if he doesn't have the best tournament or he's playing third line minutes, that doesn't concern me because I've seen enough of him in Michigan where I'm not really concerned about his style of play. So in that sense, unless he's either outstanding or absolutely terrible, maybe then I might want to circle back and look at things, but I don't expect that to happen. just because of what I've seen from him in Michigan. But then, I look at a guy, like Samuel Honzik with with Slovakia, and I'm going, okay, this guy's scoring a ton of points. I watch him play. I have some thoughts about some of the strengths and weaknesses in his game, but I want to see how he plays at a higher level of junior hockey against some better quality teams. Like, can he move the needle against a team like the States or Sweden or even Canada? And if he can, and he's really one of the more high-end producers on the Slovakian team, then I go back and go, okay, well, he left the Vancouver Giants where he's dominating and doing extremely well. And then here he is internationally and he did the same thing. And it's just something to add to the resume. But I don't give it a ton of weight because it's such a short tournament. The quality of your opposition can vary pretty greatly. Weird bounces can completely change the trajectory of your team or the trajectory of your individual output. So I don't really think about it too much. But it's always very interesting just to see a player either outside of their comfort zone or challenged at a higher level. Or in some cases, like one guy on Slovakia I really like is Martin Misiak, who's draft eligible. And he is a big, heavy, fast, physical guy who has a lot of skill that just doesn't really get the chance to do that much in the Slovakian Pro League right now. But moving back down to junior level and where he hasn't been, I think, in 2 years, like he's been playing against men the last 2 seasons, moving him back down to junior, he might be able to stretch out a little more, try to drive a little more production and take on more of a bigger role. And so players like that, where there isn't much of a public profile because they may not play that many minutes or they don't produce a ton, then going back to junior, that's another one where I can sort of look at it and go, okay, like here's something that, you give this player a bit of time to stretch out, then you get some better results and maybe you can carry that forward. But again, it's a case by case thing for me and really dependent on who am I looking at and where are they playing and what am I looking for.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how it affects like those high end prospects, like Matvei Michkov, like won't be able to play in the tournament,
right?
And he's expected to go top 5. I wonder if Fantilli I think already has jumped him with the way he's been going this year, but I'm curious to see if he maybe drops a little in the draft just because he can't play in the tournament. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think that there's just a lot of guys that I kind of just want to see how it goes for them, right? Like it's not really sort of I'm going to change things based on XYZ if these things do or do not happen, but I just kind of want to see how it goes. Like Edward Schale is another one of these guys who's been playing against men all year. He has a pretty big resume from junior hockey in Czech Republic. He started off really hot this year and he's been ice cold for 2 months now, a month and a half. And some people are starting to question him a little bit, but if he can sort of come back down to the junior level and really drive good results for the Czech team, and maybe they have a good result at the tournament, then I would feel a little bit better going back to the Czech League games and going, okay, like these are things that he can do. It just, he might be held back at this point in his career because he hasn't figured out XYZ, and you give him a few years to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and taking it back to the Leafs, we saw like last year and the years before, we had Matthew Knies, we had Hervonen, we had Niemela, we had a bunch of guys playing in the tournament, and now we don't. Did anything surprise you? Like, obviously, our over 20 guys are no longer, available to do that. But for the under 20 guys like maybe Ty Voigt, who didn't even get a call to camp, even though he leads the OHL.
Right.
Did that surprise you in any way, or are you not really surprised by that?
Yeah, Ty Voigt surprised me. The options for Toronto are not very large. Like Nikita Bronkin and Vyacheslav Peksa would not be there regardless. Dennis Hildeby is too old. Maybe Moldenauer, but I can see how it's a bit of a tough sell to take a 19-year-old USHL player who's performing well, and putting him on a Hockey Canada team where they do have a pretty strong preference for Hockey Canada guys that have played in the OHL, CHL, WHL, whatever you want to call it. They've played there, and Moldenauer hasn't. And I think it's more of an uphill battle. Fraser Minton, I thought maybe would get a call up to the camp. I feel like maybe he could play a good bottom 6 role, penalty kill. He's a really, really good puck mover, really smart passer, and compared to guys like Colton Dock and Caden Bankier and some other WHL guys, I thought maybe he might at least get an invite to camp. But I mean, it's hard to nitpick the Canadian roster when you look up and down the team and really question what they've got. And this happens every year, right? Like Hockey Canada brings a team that has a formula, and that formula tends to work. they like this sort of top six, bottom six approach. They want guys that can play physical at the bottom end of their lineup and play hard and eat minutes while the high skill guys recharge. And if they don't think Fraser Minton's quite on that level yet to play that sort of a boiled down role, then maybe they just don't really think about it that much, or maybe he was one of the last guys they thought about bringing and just cut him. Like, I don't know, but I think Ty Voigt is the one that surprises me the most because, I mean, one, there isn't that many other options, but two, I really do think he should have at least been there. And maybe it's the opposite problem of Boldenauer, right? Like, it's a U.S. guy who went to Canada, hasn't really been to the States playing hockey down there in a while, doesn't have much international experience for them anyway, and he could have been a fit, sure. But again, you look at the States team up and down, there's more than enough guys there who can shoot and score and skate and play with a lot of skill. And I don't know. It sucks. Personally, I probably would have had Ty Voigt on the roster, but don't worry. He's still
the same
good.
thing with Sasha Pastyukov, who I think plays on the same team as Ty Voigt.
Yes.
He didn't get the call either, and he's American playing in the OHL as well.
Well, that's interesting because he played on the team last year and they didn't.
Yeah, exactly, right?
So I don't know. We could talk about him for an hour if you want. But yes.
I wanted to mention the Swedish the goaltending situation, right? Because obviously we saw during the last tournament, whilst it was a rock for the Swedes, right? I mean, he won the best goalie of the tournament, and with Carl Lindholm in now, what do you think? How do you think he's going to perform? And do you think this is going to play a factor in the way that the Swedes, I guess, do in the tournament?
Oh, I think it's going to be pivotal, right? Like, I think if you're going to take down a team like Canada, you got to be able to keep them out of your dangerous areas, and they're going to get chances on you. You've got to have a goalie who can give you the saves. Carl Lindbaum has an advantage that pretty much every Canadian goaltender does not have, and that's professional experience. He's been playing pro hockey all year, performing really, really well. His team started off a little bit underwhelming. They're a young, exciting team that got relegated from the SHL last year, and they're trying to get themselves back in, and they started off a little rough. Coaching change came in, and it's been a bit better for them, but I think a lot of that comes down to Lindbaum. I mean, I looked this up the other day. He was working on, I think they have the lowest rate of goals against per game, and I think they're like 25 goals behind the league lead in goals for, which and they're second place right now. And so a lot of that I think comes down to him, because when I look at that team playing defensively, they're not like the most incredible group of guys, but I mean, they're a very, very talented team for the second division in Sweden. They probably should be in the top division, but I don't know. He's going to be pivotal. And I think that, I look at their defense group in front of them. They don't have a ton of guys that I think play really, really reliable defensive hockey. Maybe Elias Pettersson can step in there. Kaliodelius has some moments, but it's not a strong suit area of his game. They've got a little bit more firepower from their defensive group rather than real defense. So if he isn't really putting up the numbers that are necessary, they might have some trouble. But he's been good all year, playing against grown men, doing well, stopping a lot of pucks. And I don't know. I'm optimistic about the Swedish team. I think they're looking pretty good, but he'll be very important.
Yeah, hopefully it works out, because if the Swedes get another silver medal, it's going to be pretty sad.
Not great. Yeah, it wouldn't be very fun. It'd be sad.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, what are your dark horses? I know you mentioned the Finnish team and then Slovakia as well, right?
Yep.
Who do you think could surprise the whole world in this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think the middle of the tournament is going to be just like a bloodbath, right? Finland, Czech, Slovakia, Switzerland, even maybe Germany. Probably not, but maybe. I don't know. I don't think there's a ton on the German team, but you never know, right? Like, Nikita Klopp has played a lot and faced a lot of pucks and saved some pucks, and you can go off that. Who knows? I remember the days of Benjamin Kahns taking Switzerland to the semifinals off of like a 50 save shutout against Russia or something from way back. I'm dating myself, I know. But you never know. But I mean, if I had to pick a team to surprise people, as long as they get like solid goaltending out of Thomas Suchanek, that the Czechs could be an interesting sort of dark horse. Like, I think Slovakia has a lot of firepower, a lot of offense, and a lot of fun on their team, but they're young. And maybe that's an advantage, maybe that's a disadvantage, I don't know. But with the Czech team, they have some, like, not star power, but a very good group up front, right? Yuri Kulich, Matthias Sapovaliv, Edward Chalet, Martin Rishavy, I like Peter Hauser as well on that team. These are guys that can chip in offensively. David Jiricek on D with Stanislav Svozil and Thomas Hamara, and even a guy like Marek Alsher. These are guys that can play defense pretty well. And if Sechanik is standing on his head, if need be, there might be enough where they might squeak out like a 2-1 win when they need one. And if that's what happens, then you never know how far that could take you, right? Like I could be not remembering correctly, but I believe they played against Canada last year and pushed them pretty hard, and they lost, but that game was closer than I think Canada expected it to be. Yeah. And I feel like they might be able to catch someone maybe sleeping a little bit, especially with sort of a goaltending and defense first approach. So we'll see how far it takes them, but that's a team that I think I'd put a little bit behind.
I'll put you on the spot. Who wins gold? I will make sure to keep this in mind when the tournament ends.
Absolutely.
Just clip it, make sure everyone knows.
Yeah, I mean, I think Canada is the team that is probably primed the most. It's just they're so deep and there's so much scoring. The only things that could get them in trouble are the things that always get them in trouble. Their goaltending is just not up to par compared to someone else in the tournament. Like if Carl Lindbaum has a 40 save game, and Ben Gaudreau faces 20 shots and allows 3, that could mean a loss. At the wrong time, they could be out. You never know. And but I look at them and go, also, they have a lot of physical guys. Like Nathan Gaucher really likes to skate fast and hit guys as hard as he can. In an international game, the last thing you want is an inopportune major because you're too hyped on maybe winning a quarterfinal game when you're up 3-1 and 10 minutes left in the game. You're feeling spicy and you crank some guy behind the net. 5-minute major penalty at the wrong time. You never know what could happen there. So that's the only thing I think that could really torpedo Canada. But on paper, I mean, I don't know. I've run a lot of data back on this stuff, and Canada is just they're ahead. they're ahead a little bit, and it's
a really good draft class for the Canadians too. The 2023 ones, like
big time,
probably one of the best. After I would say a pretty good stretch for the U.S. Draft in first rounds at least.
Yep.
I think Canada is.
I mean, it's a great draft around the world, but Canada is very, very strong. I mean, I think there's a lot of Canadian guys that even like Jaden Perron, who's not even playing in Canada, is a Canadian guy in the States who I think could make a lot of waves in this year's draft. The States, I think, have some individuals that I think look pretty good, but yeah, it's a Canadian heavy draft for the first time in a while. But as usual, there's guys peppered around the world that also have performed quite well. But it's also just a good draft in general.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that's gonna do it here for us. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you again, Will, for making some time, and it was great to rack your brain on that. So tell the people, where can they find you?
Yes, so I run a website called scouching.ca where I do data tracking of every draft prospect you could probably imagine or care about and more. I also work for McKean Talkie at mckeantalkie.com, doing some writing for them, articles. So the written versions of my YouTube reports are also available there. So that's the other thing. I run a YouTube channel called Scouching that you can find here on YouTube, where I write our film and report on draft prospects and all kinds of other stuff. We do a live show every Thursday night. So there's going to be one later tonight in 2 hours. So I got to reboot and recharge for that. But so you can subscribe over there and get your fill of draft content and ask me some questions and yell at me every Thursday night. What better things are there to do?
Yeah, definitely. Well, from all of us here, happy holidays to everybody, right?
Yes.
Happy holidays.
Yes.
Last day of game.
Exactly. Take a breather. Enjoy the season. I mean, hopefully we get some snow. Hopefully it's not too bad. It looks like it's gonna be some freezing rain.
Tomorrow is gonna be a storm.
It's gonna be a mess.
If it was just all snow and no freezing rain, I'd be so okay with it.
I just don't want to shovel.
Listen, I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. I don't have a boomer back like you yet.
Oh, okay. You will.
You are a zoomer. You were denying it.
Millennial.
Your back's not gone yet.
Hey,
I'm 32. It comes. It's happening. It's gonna happen.
I still haven't hit the quarter century yet, so I'm okay for a little bit longer. God. It's 6 months more. I can rest on it. But that's gonna do it here from us, man. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, tweet out at us, like I said, and hit the bell notification. I mean, there's a bunch of shows that we have here on SDPN that you guys would love to check out as well. And one quick tidbit, on my Twitch channel this Saturday, we're gonna be doing a charity stream. Armaan's gonna be on there as well, and he's gonna be cutting his hair. He's gonna be shaving it off. So Armaan, show them the luscious locks. Show them the luscious locks.
I mean, it's really long right now.
It's way too long. He's gonna be donating it all on there. We're gonna have a bunch of. I love it. We're gonna have like I think we have like this super spicy like hot sauce too, like the bomb hot sauce or whatever. We're gonna be doing a bunch of crazy stuff. Join us. It's all for a good cause. It's gonna be all for charity, and we'll hope to see you guys there. Good night. Bye.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.